one of the hottest, recently trending dating simulation games presents itself. The Ladies Love Project features a main character who is a 17-year-old girl from the countryside. She is revealed to be the long-lost daughter of a duke, as she returns to her forgotten life in the ducal family after living as a commoner. She becomes surrounded by a series of new incidents and connections, several target male leads, each with their own unique charms, and the ulterior motives of the duke's fake daughter, who stole the main character's spot while she was missing for 6 years. The goal is to defeat the Villainess and gain back her lost wealth and flame while fulfilling her true love. A voice calls out to play the game now. The scene cuts to a girl who says that everything was perfect. She then hears people talking about how they talked about her to just look at herself. Who does she think she is? If she feels that wrong, then just take the hint and leave. She still doesn't get it? They don't want her in this house. The girl with her bags says that she finally gained her freedom. She could have been perfectly happy with just that alone. A person tells her that he's sure that he told her to live without making a single noise, as if she were dead. The little girl feels confused. She says that they say she made a scene like a mad dog at the banquet celebrating the crown prince's return. What was she thinking? What's going on? The girl questions herself. She says that she can't speak. Is it a dream? What is this place? 3 options appear on her screen, where the first asks how would she know, second saying that she wasn't thinking of anything, and the third about the thing is with a pitiful voice. She questions herself what this is. The person tells her that she better answer him now. The girl asks herself where is she? Who is this person? She just woke up after falling asleep. She doesn't know what this is, but if she doesn't choose an answer, she might die. The girl chooses option 3 and says that the thing is. She thinks to herself that her voice automatically. The person repeats what she said and tells her to continue. More options appear on her screen, where the first says that she's sorry, and she'll repent, second about that she was the dumb maid that made a mistake, and third about those lowly servants mocked her, a noble lady. The girl chooses the first option and says that she's sorry. The person says that if this was something that could end with a simple apology, they wouldn't be standing here in front of each other right now. From this moment onwards, he orders her to be on probation. Not only is she banned from attending banquets, but she is also banned from leaving her room. Think of what she did wrong and how she should act from now on while she repents. The girl keeps thinking to herself what she did wrong. The person says her name Penelope Eckhart. The girl feels shocked by what she hears and questions herself. Penelope? While looking at him, he says that for the time being, he will take away the Eckhart name from her. She looks at something weird and asks herself, favorability? The person asks why she's avoiding his eyes and looking elsewhere. The girl thinks to herself, no way, and shakes her head. The person says that it must be true that she's gone mad. He turns and walks away. The person standing beside the door calls her the heart or word and says that it serves her right. She looks over his head and the numbers are in negatives. She feels shocked while the man walks away and slams the door. She asks herself if this is a lie. She can't believe it. There's no way. She must be dreaming right now. She touches her face and says that this isn't her. It isn't herself. Voices erupt in her head asking if the guys played that game. Other voice asks what game. He replies that the one that's being advertised a lot these days. The other voice replies all that. He tried it, but the characters are so annoying, so he's going to quit. The other person asks, characters? Which ones? He replies by thinking what was her name. The fake heroine. Ah, that Villainess, Penelope Eckhart. This shocks the girl as she touches her face. The illegitimate child of a wealthy family presents itself. What a romantic setting, especially for a girl. If they were a character in a novel or drama, they would be the heroine of a Cinderella story. The girl says that the reality is, this isn't a novel or drama. From now on she will be living with us, says a person, although her mothers are different. She's her little sister. Treat her well, says the man. The people call her a worthless child. Living with only mother in a one-room apartment, or a future in an orphanage, would have been better for her. The scene cuts to 6 years later, to the present time. She opens the door to a gloomy room. She says that son of AB *TCH older brother. The girl thinks about them talking about how the father could let a bastard like her handle his move. The girl says to herself that they know how much they torture her. Why don't she just tell her to live on the streets? They should just worry about the ongoing inheritance process. The girl smiles to herself, and jumps on her bed and says whatever. She's free now. She then hears a long bang on her roof telling her that she's too loud, to which she apologizes. She says to herself that living in that house until now was very painful. Whether it was at home or school, her half-brothers would endlessly torture her. and her father didn't give a damn about anything they did. She worked hard to get into a prestigious university just so she could have a reason to move out and escape that hellish family. The girl sighs to herself and tells herself that she did it. Her depressing days are over now. She's going to school, make a bunch of friends, and live happily. One of the students asks the other student if they beat the game. They say that they are on hard mode, and their favorability seriously won't go up. She asks if it's even possible to win. They say that it's probably pay to win. The girl asks what they are talking about. The other girl replies by asking if she didn't know. It is that game that's been trending recently. She asks a game. The girl downloads the game and looks at her screen. She says to herself that it looks childish. How is it trending with a title like this? She's not really interested. But this is all they talked about at school. She'll just see what it's about. She's not going to her part-time today anyways. Let's see, says the girl. The game has 2 difficulties, normal and hard mode. She should do normal mode first. The game opens and she says to herself that this must be the opening video. The game's introduction begins with an ordinary girl about to turn 18. Yvonne, she's the youngest daughter of the ducal house. 6 years ago, she was separated from her family in an accident. As she returns to her forgotten life in the ducal family after living as a commoner, she becomes surrounded by a series of new incidents and connections. Target the male leads and raise their favorability. She can also earn fame and wealth by getting rid of the villainess who likes to interfere with the heroine. If she reaches 100% favorability with any of the male leads, she will receive a confession of love and obtain an ending. The girl thinks to herself, that's simple. Isn't this pretty generic? Although the pretty art is a plus. Since she has class tomorrow morning, she'll just play the prologue and go to sleep. The small gameplay then turns into 3 hours, and the girl feels tired. She couldn't sleep. She says this is more fun than she thought. The system is unique, and it's really well made. And somehow, it feels like she's watching her own story. The heroine, who had lost her status and lived in poverty, returned to the ducal house. She, who was brought into a wealthy family one day by her father, even down to the 2 older brothers who were wary of the sudden appearance of a younger sister. She thinks to herself that the difference between their situations are like night and day. She can't believe the brothers are male leads too. Well, it's kind of fun to tame brats like these. All the target characters start with 30% favorability in normal mode. It's fun, but it's too easy, even for a beginner like her. The girl thinks to herself that this should be called easy mode instead of normal mode. She ends up finishing all the endings. Is there anything else to do? She asks something to herself. She reads a text where it says that she can now purchase the game's hidden ending. It costs 100,000. The girl feels shocked about the 100,000 price. She asks herself, why is it so expensive for just an ending? Is there no other way? She sees a text where clearing hard mode unlocks the hidden ending for free. She thinks to herself that there's hard mode too, but she has to clear all of those too. It's late already and she has classes tomorrow. She goes silent for a while and then tells herself whatever. How hard can hard mode be? In hindsight, she must have gone crazy for a second at the thought of the fact that the ending was just out of reach. Otherwise, she never would have done such a thing. She says to herself, that's cool. The villainess is the heroine now, Penelope Eckhart. In hard mode, the story will be played from the perspective of the villainess, Penelope Eckhart, a fake lady, brought in to replace the real daughter who went missing when she was young. Just what happened in the dukedom, prior to Yvonne's return? Experience her story in hard mode now, says the game. The girl throws her phone in frustration as she dies again. She asks herself, why is it so extreme? This is too much even for hard mode. It's so damn hard to raise the favorability because it's the villainess too. If she makes the wrong choice even once, favorability drops to 0 and it's game over. And all the endings are death endings. It's so annoying. She dies again and says this game is crazy. She looked so evil in normal mode, but if she looks at it from her perspective, she didn't even do much wrong. Why is everyone treating her like this? She is determined to just let her stay alive just once. Her initial goal was to get the hidden ending, but that doesn't matter anymore. What did the villainess even do wrong? They just put her into an evil role, that's all. She wants to see this pitiful villainess live and become happy with any of the male leads. The heroine in the normal mode earns everyone's love too easily. On the other hand, she only becomes more miserable, no matter how much she begs for affection. The villainess in hard mode only ever meets death. The girl then hears voice of her brother saying that to tell father if he feels wronged. She can't, right? Father doesn't care about her. He doesn't care if she is starving or getting bullied in school, since she's not actually part of their family. She says that the image of that villainess overlapped with hers. So even if she keeps dying, she says to herself that those bastard ducal brothers keep killing her. She dares them. She's going to get her endings for sure. Maybe she should just raise favorability with cash. She stops herself and says that she must be going crazy. She keeps pressing reset and reset. Restart, then die, then restart again. She drops her phone and says but she couldn't reach any of the endings, even after the sun rose. The girl is annoyed again and closes her eyes. She says that she's going to restart until this villainess's ending isn't death anymore. The scene cuts to a maid calling her lady to please wake up. The girl asks if she's referring to her. She then realizes that last night, she woke up here instead of in bed at home, and she has become someone else. She begged and begged all night, but she guesses it wasn't a dream after all. She has really become the villainess of that game, Penelope Eckhart. She wakes up and presses her hand against her bed and then feels a pain on her arm, like it's been hit by lightning. She checks what it was and it was needle marks. The maid asks if she's up. The girl thinks to herself that she's the same as the maid character she saw in the game. Penelope asks what the hell was she doing to someone who was asleep. Her voice won't come out. She is not able to say anything if there aren't any choices. The maid says that she has prepared the bath, so please wash yourself, my lady. The maid smirks at her. Meanwhile, Penelope clenches her mouth. She says that she didn't expect her to attend to her, but just a cold water in a washbowl is too much. She knew she was mistreated, but she didn't know that the setting would be so detailed. Penelope thinks to herself about the needles. Something like this wasn't even in the game. Her brain clicks. It was in the game. It had to be a death scene too. She exclaims, what the hell? No matter how she looks at it, it was just a bit of poorly drawn blood splatter. Was it alluding to this? How the hell is she supposed to recognize that? She thinks to herself that this game sure has some useless details. Meanwhile, the maid knocks at her door telling Penelope that breakfast was ready. She asks if she's not done. Penelope gets pissed but says it can't be helped. She was tortured in that damned household for years. This doesn't even tickle her. The maid tells her to take a seat and tells her to please eat. She must be famished. The food was all moldy and had the look of an Indian street food. She asks if this is a pile of garbage for a meal. She's supposed to eat this? The maid smirks at her. The girl turns and a light shines, asking her the same three options, where the first option is about asking if she's crazy. Bring the chef and flip the table. The second option is about why don't she try eating it, feeding it to the maid. Meanwhile, the third option is to just eat it. The girl asks herself, choices again? The girl says that these choices, she knows them. It's the scene she had to redo twice at the beginning of hard mode. She chose the wrong answer twice, and it resulted in a game over both of those times. Right now, she is in that game event. Out of the three choices, the two she chose were traps. If she chooses option 1, the poor maid will run to the Duke and tell him about her tantrum. If the eldest son overhears, she'll be banned from taking even a sip of water and she'll starve to death in this room. She can't choose option 2, either. The second son will just happen to pass by the room and see. As he tries to separate the maid and her, she'll be stabbed in the neck by the fork on the floor and die. Back then, if she got fed up, she would have just hit the back button and played some other special events. But this is reality, so there's no back button. The girl chooses to eat it, and her body is moving on its own. She eats it and the maid feels shocked. The girl says to herself that this is food? Don't joke with her. This is just a disgusting waste. Her body won't stop. As she grabs that moldy bread, she asks herself how much longer does she have to eat this to clear this stage. The maid asks if she's really going to eat that. Someone steps in and asks the maid what she's doing. It was young Master Reynold. The girl who almost pukes asks herself why she has to go through all of this. She curses that damned household. She hears her brother voices talking about her to tell father that if he feels wronged, she can't write. Father doesn't care about her. He doesn't even care if she was starving or getting bullied in school since she's not actually part of their family. The girl says that those two bastards never left her alone, whether it was food or if it was her school life. Although their mother died of disease before she was even born, they acted as if she was her sworn enemy. Because of them, she was sick constantly. She had enough experiencing this kind of stuff in the real world. But now she's even experiencing it in a game. Reynold asks if she's okay when he takes a glance on what the girl was forced to eat. The boy yells at the maid asking her what she's feeding her. The maid tries to explain that the thing is. Reynold slams the desk and asks how dare her to mock the duchy. How dare a mere maid do such things to her owner's food. The maid keeps trying to explain herself by saying that's not it. Reynold tells her to get out of here. Now. The maid's still frightened. Reynold goes on saying that he will make sure to inform his brother and father about this. Reynold asks if there's anyone there. Where's the butler? The maid asks him what's the matter, to which Reynold commands to take this B***tch away and imprison her. The maid yells that she's sorry. She keeps yelling, "Young master." Penelope makes a gagging noise and Reynold asks if she's okay. Why was she eating this crap so pitifully? She should have just flipped the table and yelled like how she normally is. The girl thinks to herself that if she didn't eat it, her neck would have been stabbed by a fork because of him. She thinks to herself that pink hair. The situation was resolved thanks to the Duke's second son, but is that maid the only reason why the lady's situation has become like this? It wouldn't be a stretch to say that all the servants here may also feel the same way. If the members of the Duke's family, including this bastard here, didn't just ignore the situation, something like this would never have occurred in the first place. Reynold says that she looks really ill. Should he call for a physician or something? 3 more choices appear again, where the first choice is about telling him to not bother, second about why does he care, get out of her room, and third is to tell him to not pretend to be kind. He's so full of herself. The girl thinks to herself that she has more choices. Even now, she has to be careful if she doesn't want to die. If she didn't know anything about this world, she would have been grateful of her concern for her. But she already knows that he doesn't mean any of it. Penelope tells him to not bother. Reynold, still baffled on what happened, says that she's right. He leaves while being angry and says there aren't any physicians in this mansion who give up their time to see her anyway. Eat whatever she wants and die. Who cares? She looks at the number above his head and it was -3%. Last night, it was -10%. She says that well, it's still negative. The girl looks herself in the mirror and says that Penelope Eckhart. She had thought so when she saw her in the game, but she really is very pretty. She would have been so happy if she hadn't moved out already. Dark pink hair and turquoise eyes, just like it was in the game. She's so pretty. She still gives off a vicious impression though, as expected of a villainess. Come to think of it, how is Penelope described in the game? The system says that in hard mode, the story will be played from the perspective of the villainess, Penelope Eckhart. Would you like to see the character descriptions? To which the girl presses yes, and the descriptions say that's the heroine of the game in hard mode. Although she is a lady of the only ducal house in the Empire of Ioka, she was originally a commoner without even a last name. After losing her mother, a poor merchant, to an illness at the age of 12, she was adopted into the Eckhart dukedom due to her similarity in appearance to that of the missing Lady Yvonne. But years later, having fully grown, she had neither the light pink hair of the Duchess, nor the blue eyes, the symbol of the Eckhart family. No, she is simply a tantrum-throwing fake lady, unloved by everyone, including the Duke. What is her story behind becoming the greatest villainess of the game? The girl thinks to herself that he should have just looked harder for his real daughter instead. Why'd he have to bring some poor kid in? A fake. A poor replacement for the real heroine. She's like the girl. How she's lived in poverty and lost her mother before coming here. How she's lost everyone's affection and was tortured by her family members. The girl says that she didn't realize how similar they were when she was playing the game. But she was finally able to escape. She stayed in that damned house until she got into a university. Even if it's small and dirty, she got herself a new home to rest in. She was finally able to escape from those bastards. But why the hell? It would have been different if this was normal mode, but this isn't any better than her life. It's only been a few hours and she can tell just what kind of treatment Penelope's been receiving here. Even if she's a violent fake, if they had any common sense, they wouldn't torture a child that the Duke officially adopted with needles and spoiled food like this. Penelope was only 12 when she was adopted into the ducal family. If she has been abused ever since, so she was forced to take on the role of a villainess? There's not much a child can do if no one listens, no matter how hard they scream. She laughs to herself and asks who is she to pity. From now on she's Penelope, and from now on, she could be killed at any time by the male leads, just like Penelope in the game. She gets chills by this thought. She flips some pages of book and says to herself to stay calm. Now that she's Penelope, she needs to find a way to survive somehow. For now, let's organize everything she knows about what kind of game this world truly is. In the system it says that it's extremely difficult to raise the favorability of the male leads in hard mode, and it's extremely easy for the built-up favorability to fall at once. Unlike normal mode, where favorability starts off at 30%, hard mode starting favorability is 0%. Certain male leads begin with negative favorability. If favorability becomes negative, there is a high possibility of a death ending. Penelope talks first about the characters. There were 5 total target characters in the game. First, there's Derrick Eckhart, and next, there's Reynold Eckhart. Penelope's stepbrothers, and the two sons of the Eckhart ducal family. Derrick Eckhart is the eldest son and heir to the Eckhart dukedom, a strict and cold noble gentleman. Since he's busy preparing to inherit the Eckhart dukedom, he does not pay much attention to Penelope. However, it seems he has feelings of disgust and hatred towards her for taking the spot of his missing sister. Reynold Eckhart, the second son of the Eckhart dukedom. He has destructive, hostile personality, a foul mouth, and is quick to act. He's always quick to pick a fight whenever he sees Penelope, so he's someone to keep an eye on. The girl says that come to think of it, they're quite similar to those bastards back home. The girl says that Derrick and Reynold were the easiest characters to target in normal mode. It makes sense though, since they're both related to Yvonne, the main character in normal mode. She was meant to reach a happy ending with them as a peaceful family without ever having to date them. Since Penelope is not related to them by blood, their story with her may be completely different compared to normal mode. The girl shakes her head and crosses their name and says there's no hope for these bastards. One of them even starts at -10%. Why? Of course, it's because the creator already has something in store for them. It's definitely telling her that she shouldn't bother since there's no hope. On top of that, hearing the word brother these days just makes her feel sick. The next male lead is the Crown Prince, Callisto Regulus, the Crown Prince of the Ioka Empire, a violent tyrant who thinks of human lives as nothing more than dust on the ground. But it seems there might be a tragic reason behind this. The game says that she has not progressed far enough in Callisto's route. Please meet with Callisto more in Penelope's perspective. Penelope thinks to herself that the Crown Prince, although, come to think of it, besides the brothers, all the information she has is from normal mode. In normal mode, the tyrant, who thinks of people's lives as flies, changes after meeting the angelic Yvonne, and would often severely punish the villainous Penelope. She could say he was serving justice, but from her perspective in hard mode, he is no different from the Grim Reaper. Penelope gets chills again. She says that bastard's the one who killed Penelope the most in hard mode. Thanks to him, she had to keep resetting and never managed to make much progress. She crosses his name and says let's not go anywhere near that bastard. Next is Vinter Verdandi, a wizard and head of the Verdandi Marquisate, an odd fellow who hides his status to act as a mercenary and run all sorts of deals, ranging from information to trades. The girl thinks to herself about Vinter. His role in normal mode was to prove Yvonne's true identity. With his ability to gather information, he protected Yvonne every time Penelope, the villainess, had something dangerous planned out. He also helped in raising Yvonne's popularity. He was a polite, romantic, and helpful character to Yvonne. The girl thinks to herself that what was he like in hard mode? She thinks she was too busy getting murdered by the brothers and the Crown Prince to even touch his route. She puts a question mark on his name and says that she should leave it for now. She doesn't know what kind of character he is right now, but there's more hope for him than the other three. And the last one is Icles, a quiet apprentice knight of the Eckhart Duchy. Though currently a slave, he was once a noble of a now ruined country. Duke Eckhart noticed his swordsmanship and promptly brought him into the duchy. Of the male leads, she can probably put her bet on Icles. Duke Eckhart finds him one night when he's out and takes him in after paying a huge sum of money. He even receives the title of Swordmaster in the latter half of normal mode and is given a position of nobility. He was also the only target character who pitted the villainess, Penelope, until the very end. Perhaps it was because he had served her for a while, but he was the most reluctant to fend off Penelope whenever she and Yvonne clashed, although she's never even met him in hard mode. For now, he's her best bet for survival. She barely has any information since she was prevented from making any progress in hard mode. Even if she knew more, she's not sure how much of the game would still apply in her current reality. But there are two things she's sure of. She can't let the male lead's favorability drop into the negatives, and she must achieve an ending with one of them by Penelope's coming-of-age ceremony, the day the real heroine of the game returns. The story in normal mode begins the day of Penelope's coming-of-age ceremony, when the Duke's real daughter, Yvonne, returns. That means the timeline of hard mode takes place a little before normal mode. If she doesn't reach the ending by then, the story will flow according to normal mode, and the male leads who care for Yvonne will try to exterminate her. The fake lady, Penelope, loses everything the day she becomes an adult with the return of the real lady. Even now the danger of a game over surrounds her. There will be no hope if it actually reaches that point. The only thing waiting for her then will be death by the hands of the male leads. She says to herself that she can't let this happen. That's right. It took so much effort to escape that damn house. How can she die in some game now? She definitely won't die. She'll do whatever it takes to survive, and she will survive and return to her original life. Definitely, as she points at herself. She hears a knocking at her door and she feels frightened, so she shoves those pages in her drawers. It was an old servant saying that the Duke is looking for her. Penelope thinks to herself that this person is. She thinks to herself how he entered the lady's room without even waiting for her answer. Even the worker at her house wasn't this rude. She wonders what she should do and if she should be angry. Choices appear on her screen and she thinks to herself that she can't be mad if she wanted to be. She needs to do something about these damn choices first. There was that method, wasn't there? The girl asks herself. She chooses the I understand option and tells herself that this is good since the Duke is looking for her anyways. Here's her chance. The scene cuts to the girl joyfully calling her father's name and telling him to look at this. She got accepted here. The father replies so. That must not be the only reason she's here. The girl gets sad and tells him to please let her move out. She wants to live near the school and work hard in college. He can at least do that much for her. The father questions move out and says alright, he'll have it arranged. The girl thinks to herself that it's finally over. She didn't study hard to get accepted into a prestigious school just so her family would acknowledge her. It was only so that she could escape this hellish house. It would be foolish to beg for love and attention from people who've treated her worse than a wild animal they decided to raise on a whim. The girl moving with the servant takes a glimpse at maids whispering about her. She thinks to herself that even before she came to this world, she had received looks like those countless number of times. The butler knocks at the door and says that he has brought Lady Penelope. He tells her to come in and the door creaks open. The Duke says that she's here while scribbling. She sees the image of her face and she bows down. She gets 3 choices again, first asking about why did he ask for her, and she chooses that. She asks why did the Duke ask for her. The Duke replies that there was a commotion this morning. 3 more choices ring and first it says that it's not something your grace should worry about. Second is she's sure he just wished there was a commotion, and the third is it's all because of that dumb maid. The girl thinks to herself that these choices are quite something. She means, who would care for such a rude adopted daughter? And what made her think that picking option 2 was a good choice when she was playing before? If both Penelope's hair and eye color were similar to his real daughter, she could have expected some mercy from the Duke at least. She says she can't choose any of these 3 choices, to which the Duke slams his pen on the table. He looks at her dead in the eyes and Penelope clenches her fist and asks please. She just needs to get past this. She hopes this choice doesn't lead her to death. She says that it's not something your grace should worry about. The Duke says her name, Penelope. It has already been 6 years since she's joined this family. The girl asks herself 6 years? That's right. The main characters are both 18 since Penelope was adopted when she was 12. Wait a second. A coming-of-age ceremony in this world means her 18th birthday, right? Then how much time does she have until the real lady of Eckhart family makes her return? The Duke says that he doesn't know if she knows this, but it's not easy to set foot into this mansion. Only those who have proved their worth through strict testing may enter through the Eckhart gates. After adopting her, he didn't hesitate to fund her as the lady of the family. He even allowed her to spend her money lavishly. Penelope stays quiet while the Duke keeps on ranting about how he's not sure if she has proven her worth as an Eckhart in the 6 years that she's been here. The girl says to herself that just a little more, it should work, and the choices pop up. She sees 3 choices where 2 were rude and the third was about her apologizing. She sees the third choice with sparkles in her eyes and says to herself, finally. The scene cuts to her asking what's this? It sure has all sorts of features. Are all games these days like this? It's pretty cool, but does she have to turn it on? It's already super hard as it is. If she remembers, she'll try turning it on later. The girl gets on her knees with a loud thump on the ground. The Duke asks what she's doing, as Penelope gets on her knees and says that it was all her fault, and yells out, "Father!" The Duke is baffled by what he just sees. He says, "Father, you say?" A system pops up where she completed a hidden quest, the forgotten name, Father. The system asks if she will now turn off choices. The game system says that turning off choices creates a freer and more dynamic gameplay. Dialogue choices will disappear, and she will be able to act independently. This mode is recommended if she would like a more in-depth experience. She can unlock even more in this mode by fulfilling certain requirements. The girl says to herself that she ignored this feature back then. She chooses yes and says that if this is what she thinks it is. She stutters while saying Father. She says that it'll be crucial for her survival in this world. She is shocked to herself and says that it worked. She can finally move and speak without following the choices. She didn't know being able to speak as she pleased could be this emotional. Penelope says to the Duke that she's sorry for creating a commotion during her probation period. This incident is due to her negligence in the care of her servants. She will deeply reflect upon her actions during the rest of her probation. The Duke, still baffled, calls out Penelope in shock. Penelope thinks to herself that if she thinks about it, she's not at fault for the commotion this morning. She's the victim. But if she thinks about Penelope's actions so far, that's not important. She'll be the one in trouble if she acts stubborn. The only way she can survive is by bowing down like this. She says that she knows she has acted immaturely until now, but if he lets it go just this once, she will do her best to prove her worth until her coming-of-age ceremony. She yells for him to please forgive her just this once. Father. The Duke is still confused about what just happened and says that he understands what she's saying. He tells Penelope to rise and says that in Eckhart's words carry great weight. Penelope. She should not let this chance that she earned today go to waste. To which she says yes and thanks her father. She leaves and closes the door, sighing to herself that she got through it somehow. She doesn't really know if that was the best choice, but it should be fine. The Duke isn't a target character anyways. She should just be thankful she was able to survive that. She turns and hears a voice saying that he's sure he told her to live as silently as possible as though she were dead. The girl recognizes this voice. It is Derrick Eckhart stepping in. He says that Emily has worked in the ducal estate for nearly 10 years. He leans and says that no matter how much money they offered, no one was willing to be her personal maid. She was the only child who volunteered to serve her. But today is the end of that. Is she satisfied, now that she has kicked out her last maid by creating this ruckus? Derrick says. This makes Penelope mad and she says to herself that when did she do that? It was his brother who created a ruckus. She was the one who was almost sent to the afterlife, eating that toxic waste. But she says to herself that if she retorts back like that, she tells herself to let's hold it in. She'll die if it decreases any further. Let's borrow the power of the system as she turns on choices. 3 choices appear. First says that he must have had a very good relationship with her. Second is that she was kicked out because she deserved it. And third is to glare at him. She panics and turns off the choices, and says this game wants to get her killed. Derrick says that he supposes she won't even bother listening to him now. She turns and bows a little for Derrick and says that she's sorry for creating a commotion. Young master. Derrick is confused by her response. The girl says to herself that how much longer will she be begging for forgiveness for things she didn't even do? She has flashbacks of her crying and the brothers saying that girl scratched her. She was wrong, father. Brother, she was wrong. The girl says, why is that child so vulgar? It's like she's a rat or something, the brother says. The girl says to Derrick that as he said, she did not know her place. The girl says to herself that she also has her pride. Putting herself down in front of others like this makes her feel sick and miserable. But she has done it countless times in order to survive. Just like now. The girl says to Derrick that since she was the one who wasn't able to handle it, he doesn't need to fire the maid. She was just on her way out after begging father for forgiveness too. She thinks to herself that her situations are so similar. It makes her feel sick. Although Penelope did actually behave violently, if she can survive by begging for forgiveness, the girl says to Derrick that she'll live quietly from now on, so there will be no need for him to concern himself with her. The girl says to herself that since this is just a game and not reality, she asks Derrick to please forgive her one more time. She'll beg all she wants. Derrick says that just this once, he will let her off this one last time. He tells her to keep in mind that this is also the last time he'll put up with her arrogant attitude. This makes Penelope mad and she thinks to herself, yes, of course. Alright, let's go back. She's been starving since the morning because of that damn maid. Penelope stumbles and wobbles. She has no strength left in her body. Derrick grabs her. She looks at his blue eyes. Derrick says that he heard she ate rotten food. Shouldn't he call for a physician? Penelope is shocked. He knew that it wasn't her fault, but he still tried to blame her for it. If she didn't beg for forgiveness like the game scenario, he would have. She flicks off Derrick's hand and says no, young master. She just promised that she would make sure she doesn't need to concern him with herself. She excuses herself and says she'll be taking her leave. She says to herself to leave her alone. She'll do her best to not ruin his mood, so she won't have any reason to point his sword at her. So don't bother with her. Derrick thinks to himself. She called him young master. Penelope has flashbacks on her brother talking smack about her, like one brother asking the other brother if he knew that she doesn't dare to call father. Father. Isn't that hilarious? Why does she call us brothers then? Penelope looks back as Derrick shuts his eye and turns. His favorability increases to 5%. The girl jumps on her bed and sighs that she's still alive. She actually thought to call him young master in that chaotic situation. She guesses it wasn't a waste to stay up all night to play that game out of sheer determination after all. When she was targeting Derrick, his favorability always dropped when she chose something that had brother in it. It's probably because he despises Penelope so much. Hearing her call him that disgusts him. Penelope thinks to herself that she died so many times not knowing that. Who knows what will happen to her if she tries calling him that. He's even pickier than her real elder brother. From now on, she'll never going to call Derrick brother. Penelope tells herself that she should eat something. Her eyes are closing. Not even half of the day has passed. Too many things have happened. She doesn't want to think right now. Penelope sees a dream and hears a voice saying that why was this in her room? Reynold says to answer, "You rat. She stole it, right?" Duke tells him to watch his mouth. Penelope says that her perspective is low and her voice is different. The girl realizes, this is Penelope's dream. Duke tells Penelope to answer him. Why does she have Yvonne's necklace? Rupert says that father, there's no need for this. He's sure she stole it. Penelope says that she didn't steal it. She didn't do anything like that. Rupert says to not make him laugh. Then how did the birthday gift Yvonne received from father end up in her drawers? Penelope says she doesn't know. She has never seen that necklace, and she never went into that room. She saw it. Fennel says that he has seen Lady Penelope go up and down the third floor quite often these past few weeks. When he checked, Lady Yvonne's room was open. Penelope is baffled by that old man's lies. She gets overwhelmed and says that it's not her. It really was not. Father, she has never entered that room. It's the truth. She just needed somewhere to hide from that evil maid. She wasn't trying to steal anything. Duke tells Fennel to lock all the rooms on the third floor and seal Yvonne's room. Fennel says yes, Your Grace. Duke says to also call a jeweler to visit Penelope tomorrow. Penelope yells that father, he really didn't, to which Duke passes her and Reynold smacks her, whispering to her that she should have gotten lost when he was still being nice about it. Derrick says how dare she lie, you filthy thing. Penelope says that after that day, Penelope bought an extraordinary amount of jewels from the merchants that were called to the mansion, not caring if the servants yelled in shock or if the two stepbrothers caused uproars over not knowing her place and wasting money. And from that day onwards, she never called the Duke father again. She hears knocking at the door, and when Penelope is asking who it was, the head butler slams open the door and says it's the head butler. Penelope asks herself why is he here again. The head butler says that he came to find her as there is an urgent matter that needs to be taken care of as soon as possible. She yells, an urgent matter? Did someone try to frame her? She asks herself. The butler says that they need to decide on a new personal maid for her. She asks, a maid? The butler says yes. He thought they should assign a new maid for her before dinner, so Penelope stops him by saying wait. She says to herself, that's it? That's why he opened the door to her sleeping superior's room without permission? Penelope asks the head butler what is his name. The butler is confused and says what? Penelope says that she asked for his name. He says it's Fennel, my lady. She asks if the butler doesn't have a last name. Huh. Alright, then what is her own name? Fennel the butler questions her on why she's suddenly asking such things. She tells him to answer her. He says it's Penelope Eckhart. She says yes, Penelope Eckhart, a noble. And yet, she has never heard of such an etiquette wherein a commoner without a last name dares to enter a noble's room as he pleases. Does he perhaps know something she doesn't? Head butler, Penelope says. This frightens the butler. She goes on by saying that on top of that, a man entering a young lady's room without permission. What will people think if rumors start going around? Fennel the butler says, my lady, how could she say that? Does she need to spell out every little damn thing for him to understand? Penelope says. Fennel gets on his knees and says he apologizes. My lady, in his impatience, he has wronged her. Please forgive him. Penelope says that she's afraid it will be unpleasant for her to see him for the time being. Head butler, so from now on, send someone else if he has something to tell her. Fennel says that it's his duty to hire maids for the mansion. Penelope stops him and asks yes or no. She only wants to hear one or the other. Fennel says yes, he understands. My lady. He says that then for her dinner. Penelope waves her hand and says that she doesn't need it, so he can leave. To which Fennel says yes. The door closes and Penelope plops on her bed and says she feels refreshed finally. Maybe she was a little too harsh towards an elder, but since Penelope has obeyed him for 6 years, he won't make a report to the Duke just because she said something like that. Penelope says to herself that to come to think of it, there was a reputation system in the game that involved building relationships with the people around her. Will it be all right? Well, it's not like she can afford to pay attention to that when she's still busy worrying about favorability. Penelope, you idiot. If you were angry, you should have made use of her status, instead of just screaming and throwing tantrums. She says to Penelope that she's a noble lady. Penelope hears a knock. It was the head maid. She tells her to come in. She asks if she slept well. She thinks to herself that did her words last night work? She guesses they won't be barging in without her permission anymore. She asks the head maid what is it. She says that she came for the assignment of a new personal maid for her due to yesterday's incident. Please let her know if she has someone particular in mind. Otherwise, they will choose one on their own. Penelope asks the head maid what was the name of the girl that was serving her. She says that does she mean Emily? Penelope says yes. Emily. Has she already been kicked out? The head maid says no, she wasn't kicked out. Penelope asks what she's doing now. The head maid says that for failing to serve her properly, she received a 3-month pay cut and is now in charge of laundry. She asks why she's mentioning that child. Penelope thinks to herself that as expected she seems to know what's going on. Penelope tells her to just tell her to continue being her personal maid. The head maid is confused, but Penelope replies by saying that it's inconvenient without anyone serving her right now. Even if they hire someone new, they'll do poorly until they get used to it. It'll be better to just keep the original maid if it's going to be like that. If she understands, send her up. She'll leave it to her. The head maid says that the second young master personally punished her for what she did to her. Penelope asks if she can't. She says it's inconvenient, just send her up already. The head maid says that if that's how she feels, she will ask the Duke first. Penelope thinks to herself that until the end, there's not a single person who follows Penelope's orders without question. It wasn't like this in normal mode. They listen to Yvonne, the true lady of the family. Do they want her to be violent and wreak havoc? Is that what they want? For her to act as Penelope has been acting till now? Penelope stays quiet and says there's no need. She'll go see father right now herself and turns. Since things ended up like this, she's going to explain to him what happened yesterday and ask him to forgive Emily. There won't be any problems then, right? Emily wasn't the one who led the bullying, nor was she the only one involved. But if even someone like the head maid was found to be a bystander to the abuse against the lady, what kind of uproar will occur in the mansion? Penelope asks where is the father? The head maid says that the thing is, the Duke went to the royal palace early this morning. She asks is that so? Then when he returns? The head maid says that she will bring Emily immediately. She must have become a worrywart with age. She could not understand her lady's words immediately and apologizes. Penelope asks herself that the reputation system is in shambles now. She tells the head maid. She hopes she won't make her repeat herself again. She tells herself that till now, there was no reason for anyone to fear the lady. After all, no matter what happened they could just put the blame on her violent temperament, but she has no intention of dying because of that. She tells the head maid that she can leave now. The maid Emily knocks at Penelope's door and brings her breakfast while trembling. She says that she has prepared breakfast. It is a delicious steak. Penelope stays quiet for a while. She picks a knife and drops it. She tells Emily, to which Emily is surprised and says yes, my lady. Penelope tells her to hand her the needle. She says what? The needle that she has been using to prick her with every morning. Emily is trembling in fear and bows down to say that she's sorry, and to please forgive her. Penelope says that didn't she hear from the head maid? Don't make her repeat herself. She trembles while taking Penelope's name, to which Penelope says to hurry up and hand it over. She searches her hair needles and says that here it is. Penelope thinks to herself that she sure hid this really carefully. She asks herself, Penelope, how painful was it to wake up to such pain in her arm every morning, and yet have no one else know about it? She tells Emily to watch carefully, to which Emily is confused. Penelope stabs herself, to which Emily lets out a huge scream. Emily says, my lady, why are you doing this? Oh gosh, my lady! Penelope says that there's no need to cry like that. Emily, after all, she gave her these wounds. Emily says those wounds, Penelope says that there are 2 right now, but it could be 3 later, maybe even 4 or 5. Emily gets chills and Emily says that from now on, she will accept everything she does to her, without any suspicion. Bathing water, clothes, food, everything. Penelope says that the wounds on her hand might just increase, and someone just might notice and think it's a bit strange. Emily trembles while taking her name. Penelope says that they'll wonder, who dares to impertinently abuse and mock the Eckhart family, and look for a culprit? Someone like her brother, Reynold. Penelope holds her face and says her name. She says that she's saying everything will depend on how she acts from now on. She says that she can get up now. Her master has finished eating. She should do her job now. Right. Emily remains silent while picking up her food. Penelope thinks to herself that she guessed she's pretty quick-witted. She could use her if she wanted to. Nothing much will change with just a single maid anyways. If that's the case, she might as well turn her into someone she can use. The fact that she can use her past abuse as a weakness and how she's able to act quickly and change sides for her own benefit. She likes that about her, she supposes. The door slams open and it is Reynold. He steps in and calls out Penelope. He asks what the hell is she doing? Why is Emily here? Emily stutters while taking the young master's name. Penelope has the thought to get rid of anything that could be used to stab her to death. Penelope tells Emily to leave, to which Reynold says that don't she dare. Emily dashes and closes the door. Reynold is asking Penelope to tell him why she's acting like this. Penelope thinks to herself that he's a negative bastard. Reynold says that is she just ignoring him now? Penelope says what? Reynold asks why she decides to keep that bitch. Penelope says to herself so this is what they meant when they said they collided often. It's just like her and her second son of a bitch brother, even down to the age difference. The girl's brother says that serves her right. Who does she think she is? If she feels wronged, then just take the hint and leave. Meanwhile, Penelope's brother says that she should have gotten lost when he was still being nice about it. Penelope says to herself that choices probably won't help even if she turned them on. It won't be a proper conversation anyways. Penelope tells him it's nothing. Don't worry about it. Reynold says what? Feeding her master rotten food is nothing? Penelope says that she meant Reynold yells at her that lowly thing didn't know her place and dared to ridicule the Eckhart family. Penelope thinks to herself a lowly thing that doesn't know her place. Reynold rants about how they don't need someone impudent like that. There are people out there who wouldn't even ask for pay if they could just have the chance to work for this family. She remembers a game dialogue where Reynold says how dare a lowly thing that doesn't know her place, like her, bully the lady of the Eckhart family. Penelope laughs to herself. She thinks it was familiar. It's what he said to Penelope all the time in normal mode, isn't it? Reynold asks Penelope why is she saying huh? Is she laughing right now? How little does that maid think of her to dare do such a thing to her? Penelope thinks to herself that indeed, everyone in this house sees her as a fool. Penelope says that she already went to see father about it yesterday, so this is unnecessary. Reynold says of course she did. He told father to get rid of that impudent thing immediately so. Penelope says that father and elder brother don't want to kick Emily out. Reynold is shocked. He asks father and brother? Penelope says to herself that they didn't say it specifically, but the only reason Derrick brought up Emily's long career was to pressure her. It's not like she's lying. If they ask, she can just say that that's what she thought they had meant by it. Penelope says to herself. Reynold asks so that's why she decided to use her as her personal maid again instead of kicking her out? She says that's right. Reynold gets annoyed. He asks if they're stupid. She should have told them no then. Penelope asks what would that change? Reynold says what does she mean what would that change? Does she want to die from prolonged food poisoning or something? Penelope says that can he say for sure that a new maid won't do the same? Reynold pauses. Penelope tells herself to stay calm. She can't afford to antagonize them by saying that this treatment is due to their attitude. It'll only hurt the pride Reynold has for his family. She says to herself that it did go up a little but it's still negative. If it drops again, she will 100% be a death ending. Penelope says that she didn't see father yesterday to have that child kicked out. Reynold asks what? Then why? Penelope says that she got on her knees and begged for forgiveness for creating a ruckus during her probation. Reynold asks in shock on her knees? She begged? Wait, did father tell her to do that? Penelope says that she told him she would be careful not to cause any more commotion for the remainder of her probation, so just let go of this incident. She tells herself that if he stays quiet, she will be twice as likely to survive. Penelope turns to Reynold and tells him to please stop trying to pick a fight with her. She's begging him, brother. Reynold is left stunned. He gets angry and yells that does she not have any self-respect? She's going to just let it go even though she was treated like that? Is she crazy? Just scream and throw stuff around like usual. That's more like her anyway. Didn't she expect these kinds of things to happen ever since the day she put that child's necklace in her room? Penelope looks at Reynold and says that he has been like that to her till now because he wanted all this to happen. Reynold is baffled. Penelope says that rather than the butler, the head maid, or Emily, the real culprit is right here. Reynold clenches his fist and says Penelope back then. Penelope says that she's not trying to say anything about it now. After all, she has been acting rather foolishly till now as well. Reynold says that he has become sick of everything. Penelope says to herself sick? With her coming of age ceremony approaching, she will soon be an adult. She says to Reynold that she can't exactly stay in the Eckhart family like this forever. Reynold is distressed. He asks what is she saying? Is she saying she's going to leave or something? Everything depends on father and elder brother, Penelope says. She says to herself that she doesn't know what will happen from here on either. She doesn't know if she'll be able to return to her own world once she reaches an ending with a target character, or if she will even survive till then. Penelope says to Reynold to not worry. She'll never target him, so he doesn't need to concern himself with her. She says that it's time for her bath, so can he please leave? She takes a glance at his face and Reynold makes a very concerned face. Penelope says what? She has never seen him make that kind of expression in the game. Is his favorability going to drop? But she was so careful. Reynold's favorability turns to 3%. It increased by 6%. Reynold says that even if it was just for a moment, he was a fool to bother with the likes of her. He turns and leaves. Penelope thinks to herself that she thought he was the most hopeless brat. She knew it was a good idea to turn off the choices since she's treading on thin ice here, but she hopes that things will continue on like this. Penelope tells herself that she can't call him negative anymore. Emily asks Penelope about an invitation from the royal palace, and Penelope nervously says yes, my lady. Emily explains it's for the second prince's birthday banquet and shows her the invitation, telling her it's tomorrow and the first young master told her to get ready quickly. Penelope becomes shocked by Emily saying her master, asking if she means elder brother did. Since Derrick said it, then that must mean her probation is over as of today. She thinks she should get ready quickly then. She just wanted to stay in her room and be served, and not get involved with any of the male leads. That would be so nice. Penelope suddenly realizes she's going to the palace and says that means she might see the crown prince. Penelope gets nervous and says no, it's a given. It's the second prince's birthday banquet, so this is the crown prince's debut scene. She gets chills and Penelope yells out no, which confuses Emily. Penelope asks Emily if it's the father attending with her tomorrow, and Emily says his grace has work tomorrow. The first young master will personally escort her. Penelope crumples the page and tells herself that she's screwed. Emily asks Penelope if she's alright because her face is very pale. Penelope says that she has to think about something, so can Emily step out for a moment? Penelope panics about what she should do, thinking if she feigns sickness, then she'll have to pretend in front of Derrick. His favorability will definitely go down, considering his personality. If it were Reynold, it could have been different. She doesn't remember the crown prince's event because she was too busy dying. She died as soon as they were alone in the palace. As soon as they began talking, kept dying, kept resetting. She'll die if she goes and she'll die if she doesn't go. She wonders what kind of damn game this is. She thinks as she thought, she should just do her best to pretend she's sick so she doesn't have to go. She asks herself maybe she should just try dying. Maybe she can return to her original world if she dies here. Wouldn't that be quicker than going through these hopeless brats routes? Besides, this game has a reset button too. It's the ultimate lifesaver that automatically appears in hard mode when she is about to die, and resets the game back to the beginning. Since dialogue choices appear for her, she wonders why wouldn't the reset button appear. She decides alright, she has nothing to lose. She'll meet with the crown prince and try dying. Penelope takes a bath while the maid asks how this dress is, explaining it's a new one she hasn't worn before and asking what about her earrings. The maid thinks these will go well with that dress. The maid says that she thinks a half updo will be better than a ponytail. Meanwhile, the other maid asks how should they do her makeup. Penelope asks herself if these really are the maids that ignored Penelope. She takes a glance to herself and thinks that they're more excited than she is. She did assert dominance lately, but they sure do switch sides fast. Penelope looks at herself and says that she guesses it'll be pretty fun to dress up with a face like this. She tells them to bring a dark colored dress that will cover the neck. Keep the accessories to a minimum, and don't try too hard on anything else either. The maids are shocked by her choices and tell her that it's a party hosted by the royal palace. Penelope responds there's no need to put so much effort into dressing her up and to just do as she instructed. She understands how they feel, but she's not going to the palace today to show off her beauty. This makes the maids depressed. Penelope says that she's not quite satisfied, but this is good enough. This disappoints all the maids. Penelope says that everyone can leave, except for Emily. Emily worriedly says yes. Penelope tells Emily that she wants her to bring her long gloves that match this dress. Emily asks Penelope if she's wearing gloves too, to which Penelope says of course. Although it faded, she can't just go around exposing something like this, can she? This frightens Emily, so Penelope tells her if she understands then go and get them, to which Emily says yes. Penelope says to herself that she has treated Emily well for a while and now she thinks that she's favored. She needs to put her down like this once in a while. Derrick looks at Penelope and tells her that it seems like she has somewhat matured during the probation period. This makes Penelope mad and she thinks to herself that this is the first thing he does the minute he sees her after a few days is be sarcastic. She bows and thinks to herself no, More importantly, when did his favorability rise? She didn't even see him. Did it rise because he didn't see her? Oh my god, so he hates seeing Penelope's face that much. If she had known, she would have pretended that she couldn't go. She thinks to herself, whatever, she'll just get on the carriage. As she turns and Derrick pauses, she sits down and says, there we go. Derrick becomes stunned and she asks herself, why isn't he getting on his own carriage? Derrick glares at her and this frightens Penelope and she asks herself what. She realizes they were going to ride together to the palace. Penelope asks if they are riding together, and Derrick asks if she has any complaints. She says no, that's not it, but asks herself why. He wasn't like this when she played the game. Derrick says if she hates it, she can ride in a different carriage. She sighs and says she doesn't hate it. It's because she's happy. Derrick looks at her and turns his head. Penelope asks herself to look at him. If he was going to act like that anyways, why'd he? Derrick's favorability increases to 6%. She tells herself that alright, nothing will happen from riding a carriage together once. There is silence in the carriage and she says this is suffocating her. The worker says they've arrived while Penelope says to herself that she can finally escape this carriage of death. She thought she was going to die from suffocation and hurries to the door. Derrick rises and steps out, asking Penelope for her hand. She wonders if he's escorting her and thinks to herself that to come to think of it, when they were getting on earlier, Derrick asks what is she doing and is she not getting off. She gets off and thanks Derrick. The workers announce the heir of the Eckhart ducal house, Derrick Eckhart, and Lady Penelope Eckhart have arrived. Penelope tells herself to not act rashly. Derrick tells Penelope to not forget that her probation was lifted just yesterday. He won't end with just being confined to her room if she causes another commotion. Penelope says yes, she'll be careful. Penelope says it's as expected of Derrick. One of the people says to Derrick that it's been a while, young Master Eckhart, and asks how is the Duke doing these days. Another conversation happens between girls talking about during the tea party she told her about last time. The other girl says, oh my. Really? Penelope thinks to herself that there doesn't seem to be a single person coming in her direction. She must have quite the notoriety. She says to herself that although it's not like she's lonely, she came with a purpose today, and if it works out, she can go back home. She hears insults and sees glances about people talking bad about her while keeping a faraway distance. She asks herself, when is that damn crown prince coming? She hears a voice by the workers saying that Her Majesty the Queen and His Royal Highness, the second prince, have arrived. Everyone bows down to them and she looks at their shining blonde hair. She thinks it's amazing. That hair symbolizes the royal family. She gets confused and asks herself that isn't the emperor's empty throne Callisto's spot, not the second prince's, the one who would take the throne on formal occasions, in place of the emperor who didn't appear in the game, was always the crown prince. So why is the second prince? The second prince tells everyone that they may all rise. He thanks them all for attending his birthday banquet despite their busy schedule. It's nothing grand, but he hopes everyone will have an enjoyable time. He says, well then, let us commence with the banquet. A door slams open and Penelope becomes frightened and confused, asking herself what was that sound. It came from the entrance. Someone steps in and she realizes it's the crown prince. Callisto? She thinks who was the one that said that both the queen and the second prince's hair was shining. That's simply blasphemy. Because the crown prince of this empire, his hair is a dazzling blonde, as if it were made from gold itself. Everyone screams and says on the floor, what is that blood? In his hand, isn't that a person? As Callisto steps in and says, happy birthday little brother.